Hello everyone. Today I would like to go over my thoughts on Andor, which is a prequel to Rogue One. I'm actually very happy that a Rogue One character got their own series and told a story that leads up to Rogue One. Rogue One is easily the best Disney Star Wars movie to me, and to see that I got to see more time with one of the characters was actually really good in my opinion. Even if we did already know his fate or all of their fates, I think it was still really nice to see the character more. I am someone who really does like to see characters more, especially if it's a character that I could like a whole lot more. Obviously, if it's a character I may not like, don't care if that person shows up more, but for characters to get more time, the character could really build onto people, onto me. So I'm really happy that Cassian got his own series. Now, first of all, I want to discuss the format of the two seasons. I'm not going to be going on any over spoilers, so if you haven't seen the series, don't worry. I do highly recommend you watch the series though, because it's really good. But for the format of the two seasons, I basically want to go over what I thought about the episodes in each season. So this does apply to both seasons, not just one of them. But there are 12 episodes, and I think episode 1 and 2 are slow, and then 3 is where something happens. 4, 5 is where it starts to get slow again. 6 is once again where something good happens. I think some really good stuff goes on in episode 6. And then 7 is pretty much the build up to what's going to happen in 8. And then 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, I think is when the show gets really good in both seasons. I think the show gets really good in the second half of the season. The first half of the season of both seasons is good, but it's not as good as the second half. And it's mostly because the first half is pretty slow. But you gotta be patient with the show, because while it is slow, it is an amazing series, and I absolutely loved it. I thought it was a fantastic series. And I think the series was so good that normally Star Wars The Clone Wars was the only Star Wars show to give me an urge to rewatch it. I watched Star Wars The Clone Wars so many times because of how much I love that show. But Andor is probably the only other Star Wars series to give me that same feeling Star Wars The Clone Wars did. And it's where I felt like I really wanted to rewatch it, and because there was so much good stuff going on in that show. The characters are very likable, the writing is very good, it tells an amazing story. When it shows action, the action is really good, and it's a very awesome time. Now, while I do think that the show could have used more action, obviously it's not perfect. I mean, I just said it was slow, and it definitely could have used more action at times, which is probably why some people say it's boring, because it doesn't have a lot of action, or as much action as other shows may have. But like I said, you got to be really patient with the show because it does get really good. So it's important to be patient with the show. But the show could have totally used more action, especially within the first half of both seasons. I think that definitely would have helped, is to just make sure it has a lot of action. It is a Star Wars show after all. But even as the way it is, I think Andor is a really good series, and it perfectly builds up to Rogue One. And now I want to discuss the characters. So the characters, Cassian is really good. I absolutely love Cassian Andor in the show, and as his character. He has a very tragic story. It tells a very tragic story in Andor, and like I said, it builds up to what's already been done in Rogue One, and it does it very well. But Cassian is easily a character I absolutely loved, and was so happy to see him have so much more screen time. And another main character in the show is Mon Mothma. Now, I didn't know I needed to see a series where Mon Mothma was a main character, but I'm actually very glad it did that. I am so happy to see Mon Mothma as a main character, and she even is an amazing character in the show. Like, I'm actually amazed at how well they handled her character. I absolutely love Mon Mothma. They've definitely been using her character more often recently, and I think she is one of the few female characters that is actually written pretty well. And it was so easy to enjoy her character and Cassian's character, both of them as main characters. And it's obviously amazing when the main characters are likable and you can enjoy the show for them. And I'm so happy to say that they were both very good characters for the show. Overall though, the show is very dark. It's totally not for kids. It definitely does some things that Star Wars does not normally do. And that's why I actually love it even more, I think, is it does things that Star Wars doesn't normally have. And I really hope we get shows more like that more often, where they surprise us what they can throw into Star Wars, because Star Wars is a big galaxy. There's a lot that can happen in it, and obviously not all of it is for kids, and Andor really shows that. Andor is such a great show, even for adults. Like, it's obviously the best Star Wars show for adults, especially when you watch Andor and then Rogue One. It's such a great time. And like I said, if you guys haven't watched it already, I highly recommend you do, because it is some of the best Star Wars we've seen in a long time. And as I've already previously said, it gives me that same urge that Star Wars The Clone Wars did. While Star Wars The Clone Wars to me will be the best animated show, Andor is easily, no contest, my favorite live action Star Wars series. Thank you guys for watching.